The water was never just water. It was everything else mixed in. Blood, fuel, sewage, mud, the rot of the jungle. You could smell the Mekong before you could see it. That thick, fetid smell of decay and vegetation and death. And once you got on those rivers, once you started running patrol boats through the delta, that smell soaked into everything. Your uniform, your skin, your lungs, your soul. I can still smell it. 27 years later, I walk past a creek in Pennsylvania and catch a whiff of stagnant water, and suddenly I'm back there. Back on the river, back waiting for an ambush, back watching the tree line for movement, back knowing that every bend in the river might be the last thing I ever see. My name is David Henderson. I served in the Navy's River Patrol Force, the Brown Water Navy, in Vietnam from 1968 to 1969. I was a gunner on a PBR, a patrol boat river, 31 feet long, fiberglass hull, twin machine guns, and a grenade launcher. Our job was to patrol the rivers and canals of the Mekong Delta, interdict Viet Cong supply lines, support ground operations, and try not to get killed by an enemy we could barely see. We failed at that last part more often than we succeeded. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, steel town, working-class family. My dad worked at the mill, came home every night covered in soot and grease. Good man. Taught me about hard work, about responsibility, about doing your duty. When I graduated high school in 1967, he sat me down. You're 18 now, he said. You got choices to make. College if you want it, work at the mill, or the draft is coming. Better to enlist and choose your service than wait for Uncle Sam to choose for you. The draft was taking everyone by 67. Vietnam was escalating. Half my senior class was getting drafted. The smart ones were going to college to get deferments. The poor ones were waiting for the letter. I fell somewhere in between, not rich enough for college, not poor enough to just accept my fate. I enlisted in the Navy in August 1967. Figured Navy was safer than Army. Ships, open ocean, technical work, better than humping through the jungle with the infantry. That was the logic anyway. Seemed sound at the time. Boot camp at Great Lakes, Illinois. Standard stuff. Marching, physical training, learning to be a sailor. Then they asked for volunteers for riverine warfare training. Said the Navy needed men to patrol the rivers in Vietnam. Dangerous work, but important. Volunteers only. I raised my hand. Don't know why. Maybe because it sounded more exciting than sitting on a destroyer. Maybe because I wanted to do something that mattered. Maybe because I was 19 and stupid and thought war was an adventure. Whatever the reason, I volunteered. And they sent me to Mare Island, California for riverine warfare training. That's where I learned what I'd actually volunteered for. PBRs weren't ships. They were boats. Fast, maneuverable, lightly armored fiberglass targets running patrol through hostile territory where every villager might be VC and every riverbank could hide an ambush. The Brown Water Navy, they called it. Made it sound romantic, like river pirates or something. The reality was we were sitting ducks in a shooting gallery. Training was intense. Live fire exercises, small unit tactics, weapons training on .50 caliber machine guns, M60s, grenade launchers, learning to identify VC positions, learning to call in airstrikes, learning to work as a crew when everything was exploding around you. They tried to prepare us for the reality of riverine combat. They couldn't. Nothing prepares you for actually being there. I met my crew at Mare Island, 5 of us total. There was boatswain's mate, second class Mike Sullivan from Boston, our boat captain. Tough Irish guy, career Navy, been in Vietnam once already, volunteered for a second tour. Engineman Frank Martinez from Texas, kept our engines running no matter what. Radarman James Wilson from Chicago handled the radio and navigation. And gunner's mate Tommy Chen from Los Angeles manned the forward .50 caliber, and me, David Henderson, aft gunner on the .50. We trained together for 2 months, learned to work as a unit, learned each other's strengths and weaknesses, became a crew, brothers, the 5 of us against whatever Vietnam could throw at us. Listen up, Sullivan told us before we shipped out. In the Delta, there are no rear areas, no safe zones. Every patrol is combat. The VC own that territory. We're just visitors, and they want us dead. Trust your crew, trust your training, and when it goes bad, not if, when, don't freeze. Keep fighting, keep moving. That's how we survive. We thought we understood, thought we were ready. We landed in Vietnam in March 1968, right after the Tet Offensive. The whole country was still reeling. Saigon had been attacked, cities overrun. The war everyone thought was almost won had suddenly gotten a lot worse. And the Mekong Delta, where we were headed, was VC stronghold territory. They assigned us to River Division 534, operating out of Dong Tam. Our area of operations was the upper Mekong Delta, rivers and canals south of Saigon, some of the most hostile water in Vietnam. We'd patrol 10 to 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer. Running the rivers, looking for VC sampans, checking cargo, searching villages, taking fire from the jungle. Our first patrol was April 3rd, 1968. Early morning, mist still on the water. We motored up the My Tho River, 5 boats in formation. The Delta was beautiful in a way, lush jungle, rice paddies, small villages along the banks, looked peaceful, serene. Then someone opened fire from the tree line, and we learned the first rule of the Delta. Nothing was what it seemed. The ambush came from both sides of the river simultaneously. A K-47 fire ripping across the water, RPGs screaming in, mortars walking up the river toward us. We went from peaceful patrol to hell in about 2 seconds. Ambush! Ambush, right! Sullivan screamed, yanking the throttle. The PBR leaped forward, engines screaming. I opened up with the .50 caliber, not even aiming, just putting rounds into the tree line where the muzzle flashes were coming from. The gun was deafening, shaking the whole boat with each shot. Spent brass raining down around my feet. Tommy Chen firing the forward gun, tracers arcing into the jungle. An RPG hit the water 10 feet from us, geysered up, soaked us all, shrapnel pinging off the hull. We were taking fire from everywhere, couldn't see the enemy, just muzzle flashes in the jungle, smoke, chaos. Return fire, light 'em up. Sullivan was maneuvering the boat in a zigzag pattern, trying to make us a harder target. The engines were screaming, water spraying, bullets hitting the water all around us. I kept firing, burned through 100 rounds, 200. The barrel was glowing red hot. My hands were blistering from the heat, but I couldn't stop, couldn't let up. If I stopped shooting, we'd die. The boat in front of us took an RPG hit, direct hit on the forward gun. The whole bow exploded in flame, bodies flying. The boat was still moving, but listing badly, burning, men screaming. I could see the crew trying to bail out, jumping into the river while VC fire tore them apart. Man down, boat 4 is hit. Wilson was screaming into the radio, calling for medevac, for air support, for anything. We pulled alongside the burning boat. Frank cut our engines. Sullivan and Tommy jumped across to pull survivors out. I kept firing, covering them, trying to suppress the ambush, but the VC just kept shooting, kept hitting us. Got 3 men off the burning boat. 2 dead, 1 wounded, bad. Threw them on our boat and punched the throttles. Got out of the kill zone. The burning PBR drifted into the bank, still burning. 2 men still on it, both dead. We had to leave them. Had to leave the boat. No choice. The ambush lasted maybe 5 minutes. Felt like 5 hours. When we finally cleared the ambush zone, I looked back. Black smoke rising from the wrecked boat, bodies floating in the water, blood spreading out in the current, and the jungle silent again, like nothing had happened. Everyone okay? Sullivan did a quick check. Frank was hit, shrapnel in his leg, not too bad. The wounded guy from the other boat was gut shot, bleeding out. Tommy and I were fine physically. Mentally, we were all fucked. "Welcome to the Delta," Sullivan said grimly. "That's what every patrol is like. Every fucking patrol." He was right. That was just the beginning. We ran patrols every day, sometimes twice a day, up and down the rivers, through the canals, deep into VC territory. And every patrol was a gamble. Would we get ambushed today? Would we hit a mine? Would today be the day we didn't come back? The uncertainty was the worst part. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere. That farmer in the rice paddy might be VC. That kid waving from the bank might be a scout. That sampan loaded with rice might be carrying weapons, or might be exactly what it looked like, innocent civilians trying to survive in a war zone. We couldn't tell. Nobody could tell. So every decision was impossible. Search that boat and maybe find weapons, or maybe terrorize innocent people. Fire on that tree line and maybe kill VC, or maybe kill civilians. Trust that village and maybe get intelligence, or maybe walk into a trap. And when you made the wrong choice, people died. When you made the right choice, people died. There was no winning, just different kinds of losing. 2 weeks in, we were checking a sampan on the Songvamco River. Old man, woman, 2 kids, boat loaded with rice bags. Standard check. We'd search the boat, check their papers, let them go if everything was clean. Tommy and I boarded to search. The old man was nervous. Everyone was always nervous around Americans with guns, so that meant nothing. Started checking the rice bags. Rice, more rice. Seemed legitimate. Then I shifted a bag and saw it. A K-47 hidden underneath. Then another. Then grenades, ammunition. The whole bottom of the sampan was weapons. "Weapons!" I shouted. "They're running guns!" The old man lunged at me, had a pistol hidden somewhere, got 1 shot off, missed my head by inches. I shot him, point blank. He went down in the sampan, blood everywhere. The woman started screaming. The kids were crying. And we had to secure the boat. Had to make sure there were no more weapons, no more threats. Found out later the woman and kids probably didn't know about the weapons. The VC had probably forced the old man to run guns, used his family as cover. He'd been trying to protect them, trying to kill me before we found the weapons and killed his whole family. I'd done the right thing by the rules, found weapons, defended myself, secured enemy materials. By the book, I was right. But I can still see that old man's face. Still see the woman screaming. Still see those kids crying over their father's body. Still wonder if there was any other way that could have ended. There wasn't. That's the horror of it. Sometimes there are no good choices, just bad ones and worse ones. The ambushes became routine. We'd get hit 2-3 times a week, sometimes more. B-40 rockets from the trees, recoilless rifle fire, snipers, mines. The VC had 1,000 ways to kill us, and we were just targets on a predictable patrol route. We lost men constantly. A boat would hit a mine, everyone dead. A crew would get ambushed, overwhelmed, everyone dead. Sometimes guys would just snap from the stress, start shooting at everything, have to be sedated and evacuated. The turnover was insane. Replacements would arrive, last a week or 2, then die or crack up. And new replacements would come, and the cycle continued. Tommy Chen took a bullet through the hand in May. Sniper round from the bank, shattered the bones, destroyed his trigger finger. He'd never fire a weapon again. They evacuated him. Never saw him again. Hope he made it home okay. His replacement was a kid named Billy Jackson from Alabama. 18 years old, fresh from training, scared and trying not to show it. I tried to teach him, tried to prepare him for what the Delta was like. But you can't teach that. You just have to survive it. Billy lasted 11 days. We got ambushed near Ben Tre. RPG hit our boat, knocked him into the water. The current took him before we could grab him. We circled back, looking for him. Found his body 2 hours later, 3 miles downriver. Drowned, probably. Or shot by VC. Hard to tell. Just another kid who died in a shitty war. Frank Martinez was the best engine mechanic I ever knew. Could keep our boat running through anything. Damage, wear, water in the fuel. He kept us alive more than once by coaxing 1 more mile out of engines that should have quit. In July, we hit a mine. Didn't sink us, but tore up the hull, damaged both engines. Frank went overboard to check the damage, try to patch it enough to get us home. VC sniper shot him while he was in the water. Headshot. Killed instantly. We pulled his body back aboard, and I had to run the engines myself, limping back to base with Frank's corpse on the deck and his blood mixing with the river water. Good men dying for nothing. That's what it felt like. No clear objectives. No front lines. No sense that we were accomplishing anything except surviving today to maybe die tomorrow. The war in the Delta wasn't about winning. It was about not losing. About making it through your tour and going home. If you could, the jungle looks different at night. Becomes something alive. Something that watches you. And when you're flying 100 feet above it in a Huey with no lights, no instruments you can trust, just following traces and explosions and radio voices screaming for help, the jungle stops being terrain and becomes this breathing, waiting thing that wants to pull you down into it. I'm Warrant Officer First Class Daniel Cross, 24 years old. From a small farming town in Iowa where the biggest thing that ever happened was the county fair. 2 years ago, I was flying crop dusters over cornfields. Now I'm flying UH-1 Hueys on night medevac missions in Vietnam, pulling wounded soldiers out of landing zones you can barely see. Under fire, you definitely can't see. They call us dust-off, the call sign for medical evacuation helicopters. When someone gets hit in the jungle and needs immediate extraction, they call for dust-off. We come get them, day or night, hot LZ or cold, doesn't matter. That's the mission. That others may live, like the motto says. Sounds noble when you say it like that. Sounds like something out of a war movie. The reality is uglier. The reality is flying blind through the dark, hoping the guy on the ground giving you directions isn't disoriented, hoping the LZ isn't too small, hoping the trees aren't too tall, hoping the enemy fire doesn't hit something critical, hoping you don't crash in the jungle and become just another emergency for the next dust-off crew. I arrived in Vietnam in March 1968, right after Tet. The offensive had just ended, and casualties were still high. They needed medevac pilots desperately. Needed anyone who could fly a helicopter, really. The training was fast, too fast. But there was a war on, and men were dying, and they needed pilots now. Day missions were bad enough. Landing in hot LZs with VC or NVA shooting at you, the door gunners firing back, the crew chief loading wounded while bullets tore through the thin aluminum skin of the helicopter. Every mission knowing that one lucky shot could bring you down. Night missions were worse. Everything that made day missions dangerous got multiplied in the dark. You couldn't see the terrain, couldn't see the threats, couldn't see the wounded soldiers you were trying to save until you were right on top of them. But the wounded don't stop needing evacuation when the sun goes down. If anything, the VC liked to hit at night. They knew we couldn't see. Knew the jungle was their territory after dark. So we flew at night. Into the dark. Into the jungle. Into landing zones marked by strobe lights and desperation. October 15th, 1968. I got a call for a night medevac mission that I should have refused. Should have, but you don't refuse. You just go. The call came through at 21:30 hours. Full dark, no moon, infantry company in contact with NVA forces, multiple casualties, needed immediate evacuation. The LZ was in the central highlands, dense jungle, hills, and valleys where helicopters went to die. The grid coordinates put them about 40 miles northwest of Pleiku, middle of nowhere, middle of Indian country, where the NVA owned the night. My crew was exhausted. We'd already flown 4 missions that day. But there were wounded soldiers out there, and I was the only medevac pilot available. So we went. My co-pilot was Chief Warrant Officer Rodriguez from Texas. Good pilot. Steady. Been in country 6 months, which made him a veteran in Vietnam terms. My crew chief was Specialist Davis from Detroit, and my medic was Specialist Peterson from Minnesota. All good men, all exhausted. We took off from Pleiku at 21:45 hours. The Huey lifted into the darkness, and immediately we were blind. No horizon, no reference points. Just the instruments glowing green in the cockpit and the sound of the rotors beating against the night air. Flying at night in Vietnam wasn't like flying at night in the States. No lights on the ground to orient yourself. No cities glowing, just darkness. Complete and total darkness, except when artillery would light up the sky or flares would drift down. The radio crackled. Dust off 27. This is Bravo 6. We have 8 urgent casualties. LZ is hot, receiving small arms and RPG fire. Copy that, Bravo 6, I responded. What's the LZ marked with? Strobe light, west edge of the LZ. Trees are high. Maybe 80, 90 feet. It's going to be tight. Of course it was. It was always tight. Rodriguez checked the map with a red-filtered flashlight. Red light so you wouldn't ruin your night vision. Not that we had much night vision to begin with. LZ should be coming up in about 5 minutes, he said. Bearing 285. I adjusted course, flying by instruments in the dark, trusting the gauges, trusting my training, trying not to think about the trees we couldn't see or the mountains or the enemy fire. The infantry company was still in contact. I could hear the firefight on the radio. Automatic weapons, explosions, officers calling for fire support, wounded crying out in the background. Dust off 27. Be advised we're taking heavy fire. Multiple enemy positions around the LZ. We'll suppress as much as we can, but you're going to be exposed. Copy that, I said, like there was any other answer. We came up on the LZ. I could see muzzle flashes in the jungle. Tracers arcing through the darkness. Green tracers. Enemy fire. Red tracers. Our guys firing back. The whole area was a light show of death. And somewhere in that chaos, there was a small clearing with wounded soldiers who needed us. I've got the strobe, Rodriguez called out. A tiny blinking light in the darkness. That was our target. That was where we needed to land. The trees around the LZ were tall, too tall. I'd have to come straight down, vertical descent, no room for error. If I drifted into the trees, we'd crash. Going in, I said. I brought the Huey down, slow, controlled, every instinct screaming to abort, to get out of there, to not fly into that chaos. But there were 8 wounded soldiers down there, 8 men who'd die if we didn't get them out. The enemy fire intensified. I could see the tracers now, green lines cutting through the darkness. Some passing under us, some over us, some hitting us. Taking hits, Davis called from the back. The Huey shuddered. Warning lights flickered, but the engine kept running. The rotors kept turning. We kept descending. 50 feet, 40, 30. The trees were right there. I could feel them more than see them, could sense their presence in the darkness. 20 feet, 10. The skids touched down, hard landing, no time for finesse. We're down. Load them up, I shouted. Chaos. That's the only word for what happened next. Pure chaos in the darkness. The infantry was rushing wounded to the helicopter. I could see them in the dim light spilling from the cargo bay. Men carrying other men. Some of the wounded were screaming. Some were silent, which was worse. The enemy fire was concentrated on us now. We were the target. Big, loud, stationary targets sitting in a clearing while they shot at us from the tree line. Davis and Peterson were pulling the wounded into the helicopter. Moving fast, but not fast enough. Never fast enough. Each second on the ground was another chance for an RPG to hit us, for a bullet to find the fuel tank, for everything to go wrong. How many? I shouted back. 4 so far, Peterson yelled. 4 more coming. The door guns were firing. Davis had his M60 blazing into the tree line. Rodriguez was firing his M16 out the co-pilot window. Spent brass raining down on the cockpit floor. An RPG streaked past, maybe 10 feet from the tail rotor. Close enough that I felt the heat. Close enough that if it had been 10 feet to the left, we'd all be dead. We need to go, now, Rodriguez was shouting. Not without all 8, I shouted back. More wounded coming, some walking, some being dragged, some being carried. I saw one soldier, couldn't have been more than 19, being carried by 2 of his buddies. His legs were gone, both legs, just gone. And he was conscious, screaming, looking down at where his legs used to be and screaming. They loaded him in. Peterson immediately started working on him. Tourniquets, pressure bandages, morphine, trying to keep him alive long enough to get to a hospital. 7, Davis shouted. 1 more. Where was number 8? Bravo 6, where's the last casualty? I called on the radio. He's coming. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. A lifetime when you're sitting in a hot LZ. The enemy fire was getting heavier, more disciplined. They were ranging in on us. The rounds were getting closer. A bullet punched through the plexiglass next to Rodriguez's head. The glass exploded. He ducked, cursed, kept firing. We can't stay here, he shouted. 20 more seconds. The last casualty came running out of the tree line, not being carried, running on his own, clutching his side. He collapsed at the skid. Davis jumped out, grabbed him, pulled him into the helicopter. We've got all 8. Go, go, go. I pulled collective. Maximum power. The Huey strained. We were overloaded. 8 wounded plus crew plus fuel. The helicopter wasn't designed for this much weight. We lifted. Slowly. Too slowly. 5 feet off the ground. 10 feet. The trees were right there. We were rising, but also drifting. The wind was pushing us toward the tree line. Watch the trees, Rodriguez shouted. I corrected. Overcorrected. We swayed in the air. The wounded in the back were sliding around. Peterson was trying to hold them steady while treating them. 15 feet, 20. We cleared the trees, barely. The skids brushed the top branches. And then we were out of the LZ, climbing, accelerating, getting away from the fire. But the fire followed us, tracers arcing up from the jungle, following our exhaust, following the sound of the rotors. Something hit the engine, hard. The whole helicopter shuddered. The engine RPM dropped. Oil pressure warning light came on. Engine hit, I called out. We're losing oil pressure. Can we make it to Pleiku? Rodriguez asked. I checked the gauges. Oil pressure dropping fast. Engine temperature rising. We were 40 miles from Pleiku. No, I said. We need to set down now. Where? There's jungle everywhere. I looked down. Nothing but darkness. Nothing but jungle. No clearings. No safe places to land. In the back, Peterson was working on the casualties. The kid with no legs was still screaming. Others were moaning. One was silent. Already dead or unconscious, I couldn't tell. We'd gotten them out of the LZ, but if the engine failed completely, if we crashed in the jungle, they'd all die anyway. We'd all die. I've got to try for that fire base, I said. Fire base Custer. It's about 15 miles northeast. 15 miles. The engine wouldn't last 15 miles, but what choice did we have? I turned northeast. pushed the engine as hard as I dared, every second waiting for it to seize completely, waiting for the rotor to stop turning, waiting to fall into the jungle. 10 miles. The engine was screaming, literally screaming. Metal grinding on metal, temperature redlining. 5 miles, oil pressure at 0, running on nothing but momentum and prayer. "I can see it," Rodriguez shouted. "Firebase Custer. 2 o'clock. Artillery flares lit up the sky. I could see the firebase, perimeter lights, the landing pad. 3 miles, 2 miles. The engine was dying. I could feel it. Feel the power dropping off. Feel the helicopter starting to descend despite maximum collective. "We're not going to make it to the pad," I shouted. "I'm setting down outside the perimeter." "That's a minefield. I know." 1 mile. The engine failed completely. Just stopped. The rotor was still turning from auto-rotation, but we were falling fast. I saw a clear area outside the firebase wire. Maybe it was clear. Maybe it was mined. No choice. We hit hard. The skids crumpled. The helicopter bounced, tilted, crashed down on its side. And then silence. Just ringing in my ears and the sound of wounded men groaning in the darkness.